To turn a satisfied customer into a long-term partner who continues to buy, refer, and expand with you, just put as much emphasis on the retention side and the back end as you do on the front end, and it'll come together.
What happens in the first 72 hours will decide whether the client becomes a liability or an asset to the company, meaning they can be influenced more than at any part of their journey. Right after that, they can be influenced to love you more, they can be influenced to hate you more, depending on what you do. And so if you can achieve all four of those things in onboarding, it's a lot, but if you can achieve all four of those things in onboarding, simply put, your LTV will skyrocket.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Unfinished Business. And today on the show, I'm joined by Bradley Rausch. Now listen, he's a sales leader who understands real winning in business is not only just about closing the sale and bringing on new clients, but really keeping those customers healthy and growing with you. Bradley's built a great career around driving performance, but what really stands out and what I really got from our first conversation was the long-term relationship, customer success, retention. A lot of companies don't put enough emphasis on that. And at the end of the day, any company can make a sale, but if they can't really sustain, or if they can't really build something and keep customers, they're never going to sustain that. So in today's conversation, we're going to shift away from closing sales and strategies and driving sales and really focus on the idea of how to create real customer success, how to retain clients, and how to turn relationships into long-term growth. So Bradley, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, David. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to this as well. So listen, from your experience, I'm just going to dive right into this, right? Foundation and perspective from your side. Why do so many companies focus heavily on, just closing the deal, but fall so short on customer retention?
It's not sexy. And my goal is by the end of the conversation, you find it sexy because we'll show how much revenue there really is to be gained on this side of the equation, on this side of the sale. To give you a much less crude answer, the industry overall, of course, glamorizes the marketing, the ad spend, and the branding, and the sales, and the front end, and things like that. And I'm not here to say there's anything wrong with that. I'm just here to say there's something to add to that equation, which is how long are you keeping a customer on average? How much lifetime value are you getting out of the customer? Are they referring you people? Are they bringing you testimonials that actually convert the right types of clients into your offer? Are they ascending into something else after they're done with the initial offer? Those are kind of the questions in the world that I live in. And so, the businesses that I most frequently partner with, again, they've got the sales dialed in, they've got the leads going. Maybe they need a little bit of realignment in terms of what the best kind of client looks like. And that's a conversation. But then beyond that, it's really, you've got the front end set, you're bringing in a couple million at least on the front end, but your clients aren't sticking. They're not staying. They're not referring. They're not ascending. If you even have an ascension offer. And then that's really where I spend most of my time.
Yeah. And at what point in the sales process do you believe, customer retention actually begins?
Really, really interesting question in the marketing. So I've actually, to this point,
really interesting answer. I love that answer. Great.
Well, and so to this point, I actually have started doing just a tad bit of very specific like marketing consulting for a couple of my clients because I'm like, listen, guys, if we just stop making BS promises on the front end, we don't have to fix so much retroactively on the back end. So we can just start branding and marketing it in a way that will allow the back end to deliver, to over deliver, to under promise and over deliver strategically, systematically, and then move people through the customer journey. And so, as far as where does it start? One of the kind of teaching things or parts of my IP to really drive this home is I love to install what's called an unmarketed delivery moment inside of the customer journey. And what this looks like is you find the point at which the customer throughout the journey, usually it's somewhere between 20 to 40% of the way through, you find the point where the customer's belief that they will achieve results, not necessarily that they have, but they will achieve results is the highest. You find that moment, and then what you're going to do is pile on top of that an already planned, already documented, built out, etc., very low effort yet high perceived value piece of unmarketed delivery, which means something you never talked about on the front end, something you never marketed, something you never said was going to be there, yet it's perceived by the client as, wow, they gave me a crap load of discretionary effort. They really care about me. They really see me. Obviously, a simple way to do this is a quick 10-minute phone call from somebody very high up in the company. Another way is a very customized Loom video that answers a very specific question that they were asking that gives them a lot of extra perceived value. There's a lot of ways to do it. And at that point, then that's where I then get into talking about that's the best moment to ask for testimonials and referrals and yada yada. But back to your
Yeah,
point about where does it come in? It's the marketing. And I even go so far with that as to say
great
is
answer.
it's important to not only market the right things, but to not market other things. To keep it for the back end.
Can you give me an example of that and tell me more, maybe of a customer that's done? You don't have to give me names, but I would
Yeah.
love to get a real example of this
Yeah.
because I think it is such a great answer. And play that back, everybody, if you can. It was such a great answer because I think a lot of times people think, well, customer retention starts from the first conversation with the sales professional, but no, it doesn't. It actually starts in your marketing. And I thought it was such a great answer. So yeah, I'd love an example if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. About 2 years ago, actually, my largest kind of quote unquote success story with the company is we worked with a B2B coaching company, a coaching consulting offer, helping functional medicine practitioners who are ex-doctors, ex-nurses start their own online cash only essentially coaching programs themselves for common health
Okay.
issues in the functional medicine space. And so they were doing about 650K when I came in, and about 6 months later they were at a $1.2 million run rate, mostly through 95% of what I did was changes to solely on the back end, hiring CSMs, redoing the entire customer journey, kind of reverse engineering all of that, building out an Ascension offer, closed a lot of the deals myself on the Ascension offer, yada yada. So in that situation, in that company, we installed several of these unmarketed delivery things throughout because it's one of the easiest ways to increase NPS. But the favorite one I will say is at about week 3, what we found is that
Mhm.
the kind of the motivation, let's say, for things like at the time, this was back in 20 end of 2023,
Yeah.
TikTok was still a very prevalent thing at the time, and we
Uh,
coached a lot of them to post organic content on TikTok. And
yeah.
so we found that at about week 3, week 4, the motivation for TikTok was really kind of waning because, of course, social media, organic, it takes time, it takes reps. It's not something that
Yeah.
happens overnight. And we found that after that sort of first month, the kind of novelty of it had wore off. They're like, okay, I've posted like 20, 30, 40 times now. When is this going to happen? What is this doing? Blah, blah, blah. So what we did is we literally just put together and it would be so much easier today with AI, but we put together, I had one specific member on the CS team take time out of his week every week, and for every person at week 4 in the program, he put together a very insanely detailed, like hours worth of research. And we of course, duplicated on some, but hours worth of
Yeah.
research for each person on what would be the best practices for them on TikTok. And they got a personalized outline Loom video, 20, like 15, 20 minutes long a piece, that gave them like 30 different links to all these posts that they could literally just go and copy. And so not only did they have the templates, the how-tos that were in the program in the cohort, they had the group calls with the team and everything. They had all this stuff, but they had no idea they were getting this hugely personal, hugely valuable thing that we planned on doing all along because we knew that their motivation for it was going to fall
Yeah.
off at around that time. And we also knew that if they didn't continue posting organically, there was no way in the world we would be able to even get them a fraction of the results that we had promised them on the front end.
Yeah. So you figured out where you could fill that gap, so to speak, and
Yeah.
keep the momentum going,
Yeah.
which is great. Yeah, that's great. Um, okay, I'm going to switch this, customer success strategies, right? Like an idea behind this,
Yeah.
because in sales driven organizations, listen, you have a great sales background, and which is fantastic. So now you move into this customer success strategy, but what does a strong customer success strategy look like in a real sales driven organization? Because you said it when you started, and I loved it. It's just not sexy, right? Like, what does a strong strategy look like?
So my framework that I install, the kind of
Mhm.
IP that I built, and just for a slight background. We talked about this in our first conversation, but for a slight background for people listening, I started off as a closer for 3 years, worked my way up
Mhm.
to the top sales training organization at the time as a closer, so very high pressure. Left after 6 months
Yeah.
after I saw how horribly the clients were being treated, got into CS, have spent the most of the last 5 years since then inside, like internal to see it to organizations in CS, whether started off obviously as a CSM, CSD. I was actually client success director for about 4 years for a 8-figure company in the B2B consulting space. And then have since then started consulting on my own. So with all that being said, the framework of the IP that I have now created that I now use in my business, it's called 4 Sales Framework. And it's essentially based off the idea that everybody focuses on the first sale, but there are actually 3 other key moments that you need to design just as much frameworks and strategy for if you're really going to make sure that you maximize the LTV of every client coming in. So the first sale is, of course, the moment of payment. Second is onboarding. Third is what I call advocacy. So either
Okay.
testimonials, referrals, or both. And then fourth is ascension. And so when you ask what's a solid customer success strategy look like, I actually designed the kind of the branding around this to really speak in the sales language. Because again, if I go out and I say, "Hey, keep your client for 25% longer. Hey, make 10% more profit, bottom line, not even top line, make 10% more bottom line for every single client that comes in." Nobody's listening to that shit. If I come on and I
Yeah.
say, "Hey,
Love it.
listen, yo, Sharky salespeople over here, you're not done," just and again the culture of the company saying, listen, we got to keep selling, ABC always be closing, and making sure that the
Yeah.
CS everybody from the CSMs to the marketing people understand what the full scope of the true, again I would say subjectively true sales process looks like. Then we can really start talking about, what does it mean to actually increase LTV, why it's important, yada yada. So I try and come at it from a uh, uh, a way that gives empathy to where the market is currently at. So
Yeah, I mean, do you? And I love what you laid out there. I think that's been just really spot on. And you said one thing: the sales process, right? I that's a big part of that. And I don't want to go into sales training and all that kind of stuff, but how can sales teams better set expectations up front, to improve that satisfaction, that retention, or referrals, or all the things you just talked about here? Like, are there some key things that just stick out to you and working on the sales side and now on the retention side and go, man, what are just those things that are the obvious, maybe that companies think they're doing, but there might not be?
yeah. Listen, this is not going to be a answer. I think a lot of people will perhaps resonate with it first, but I would challenge
Yeah.
whoever's listening to really sit with it and just take a self audit. It's top down, because at the end of the day, the culture, the expectations, the standards that you set are going to be reflected throughout every part of the company. So I don't care if you've got one
Yeah.
closer, it's just you and one closer and a part-time BA, or if you've got 10 closers and 10 CSM reps. Like, it doesn't it's top down. So a really great challenge or just self audit that I love to give to founders is look at your calendar over the last 2 weeks, month, and look at all of those gaps of time. I know they might be few and far between, but look at all the gaps of time where you didn't have anything scheduled. There's a gap on a Tuesday from 3 to 4 p.m. something. And then go back and look and see if you can remember what you did during that time. What this is going to do is figuring out where is your discretionary effort going. If during that time you went and you said, "Hey, how can we make our ads 5% better? Hey, how can I go and do a sales call review with this salesperson?" Da 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 da. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not here to shit on anybody. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But if your discretionary effort, at very least at times, doesn't go to how can we make the client experience better? How can we make things more profitable on the back end? How can we make sure how can we make sure people get presented with a better opportunity to ascend into another container? Then I would really challenge you to ask yourself, am I representing a holistic client driven culture that I want my team to
Yes.
emulate? And again, that's a really, I'm just going to call spade spade. It's a more woo woo answer. But
Yeah.
it really does come top down. The one other thing that I will say is from a hiring perspective, because I actually do a lot of work with hiring not only CS teams, but also sales teams for this exact issue to make sure that there's people in that are going to holistically drive the full client experience, not just the sale. And I don't know if have you done a lot with disc testing, DISC, or heard of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So what I will do is, the if somebody is a high D, that's very like
Yeah.
salesy, sharky.
Salesy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
If somebody's
Yeah.
very high I, it's still salesy, but it's more relationship driven. If somebody's high S, it's high compliance driven. If somebody's high C, it's high process driven. So on the sales side, I'll have everybody disc tested, everybody that we're considering. And on the sales side, if they are not at least as high of I as they are a D, I will say, listen, we need to look somewhere else, because
Yeah.
they're not going to be the type of person that's going to even be slightly interested, even if prompted, at really investing in the client and making sure they're the right fit. On the opposite side, if it's a CS person, team lead, team, member, whatever, I will make sure that they have at least something of a D, and also this person's also going to be high I, high C, but they have to have at least some sort of a D, because if they don't, they're never going to be able to have the chops, to the confidence to show up to these conversations and to ask for a referral, to pitch a testimonial, pitch an ascension offer. They'll
Yes.
always be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, and I'm such a wallflower, and da da da. I'm like, no, you got to you got to be a little sharky. So, anyways, all that to be said is culture is a big one. But also, I think it starts from who you're working with, and making sure that your salespeople are a little bit empathy driven, and making sure that your CS people are a little sharky driven.
Yeah, you got to have that blend and be able to identify that. So, listen, you talked about this, sales side and CS side, and I like to really identify accountability, right, and ownership. Like, how do you get the entire team to buy into because I believe the accountability and ownership should be across salespeople, account management,
Yeah,
operations,
100%.
the whole structure. But how do you get everybody to buy into that? Or I guess, what's a good structure in your experience to get everybody on that same page and really not just say, oh, yeah, it's my responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility, but to really buy into it?
So the overall structure, or the overall initiative, and I'll get into like very specific strategies in 2 seconds, but again, the overall initiative, I'm just gonna say it again, it's top down. If the conversations aren't happening on a daily basis, where you're going around the office, if the water cooler talk isn't at least a little bit of, hey, how did that client end up doing with that big thing that we're working on,
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
hey, how much did we close today, ring the bell, da, 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 then it's like, what are
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Right.
tactically, uh there's three different variations of the same quote unquote strategy. Uh, Everybody knows that obviously there are sales call reviews. Those are, usually public, sometimes one on one, but they're usually public. You listen to a sales call. What could you have done better? Da 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 da. Everybody knows that there's also client success call reviews about what could we have done better. Da 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 da. Strategy one is you have the salespeople sit in on the client success calls, and they get to see what the person that they sold in
Yep.
is thinking
Great.
about,
Great
what their
strategy.
issues is, etc. Then the strategy two is you have the CS people sit in on the sales calls to know what the people coming in, what their expectations are, what their fears are, what their etc. Da 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 da. And then the third strategy, which is a little bit of a blend of it, is this is so easy these days with AI, but the onboarding process needs to be so much more integrated. So the onboarding process, you can easily take the transcript from the sales call, the any sort of onboarding documents, that you can even take any information that was submitted in sort of marketing materials, application forms, etc., and then the transcript from an onboarding call, whatever. You can make a custom GPT for every single client that gives you a breakdown of exactly what they're coming into the program hoping for, expecting, secretly hoping for. Even it'll give you insights into that and pick up on pattern recognition that you weren't even aware of, and it will give you a customized roadmap for every single client. And obviously, you're not going to go and change the program or change the delivery for every single person, but I think that's really important to be able to pull out when valuable at those highest leverage moments to really serve the client well. And so I think from it goes back to the culture thing and some mixed integration there, but then also there's definitely a systems AI process that I think a lot of people could be using as well.
To take advantage of. Yeah. You talked about onboarding, and tell me about the best onboarding you've seen with a company or have impacted with a company, because I think onboarding is so huge. Listen, sales professionals give a lot of information, and I think a lot of times buyers, not all the time, but a lot of times, can only remember 30 or 40% of the things. They remember the big pillars and the things that stick out, but when it comes to the details, that can be missed, and it's natural. I mean, we're human, right?
Right.
So, yeah, give me an example of some the importance of onboarding, number one, and
Yeah.
two, maybe a company you've worked with, or things that you've done, or your strategies you employ to really make that onboarding process kind of stick and fill the gaps like you talked about earlier.
The methodology behind onboarding, from my, again, subjectively from my take, is what happens in the first 72 hours will decide whether the client becomes a liability or an asset to the company. And I say
Mm-hmm.
72 hours very specifically is because built out a kind of a very, again, specific framework for this. And so the idea is, clients are most volatile in that first handful of days, meaning
Yeah.
they can be influenced more than at any part of their journey. Right after that, they can be influenced to love you more. They can be influenced to hate you more, depending
Yeah.
on what you
True.
do.
True.
And
Right.
so just taking more intentional time with that, and not using that as a, oh, do they have the doc signed, and like this admin, BS time period. You really want to make it intentional. So the very high level framework that they will usually install. There's 4 shifts emotionally that you want to achieve within the first 72 hours of somebody becoming a client. First one's safety, and then clarity,
Okay.
momentum, and identity. And just a
Okay.
really quick anecdote on each of those. So
Yes, please
yeah, yeah,
explain, because these are great.
yeah, yeah.
Give it a rundown.
So safety is basically going from, the person asking, did I make a mistake? What did I even buy, et cetera, to if something goes wrong. So not only I know I didn't make a mistake, but if something goes wrong, I know who to contact and I know when to expect a response. My favorite way to install safety in your onboarding is a call from somebody within 12 hours. You can even honestly hire a very low, a VA, even, very low on the rung CS person, that their only job is literally just to dial people that have come in the last 12 hours, and to say, you don't need to answer any questions. You don't need to teach them anything. You don't need to coach them anything. You just need to say, hey, I noticed you enrolled, and we wanted to make sure that we knew, and that we're really excited to work with you. And I wanted to make sure you knew when to expect the next, or when the next touch point is, when for your first call is. Make sure you have access to blah blah blah. Make sure you know where to get support, etc. It's literally, I call it a safety call. It's literally just a little bit of a padding on the
Yeah.
seat,
Yeah. Just a pat. Yep.
just to confirm that
Reinforcer.
they're like, they're there. We know you're there.
Yeah.
And you'd be shocked how many people don't even, like, it's like foreign to so many people. The second one is clarity, and this is taking from somebody from, what did I buy? Where do I start? How do I do it? To, I know exactly what to do this week, today, and I also know what not to touch yet. And this one's really, really powerful. My favorite way to install clarity is I will actually have people create what I call a custom, like a start here asset, which is a video PDF. This can obviously be super AI assisted. Again, you take the transcript from the sales call, you have somebody make a 5-minute Loom video recording that's custom to them, gives them a breakdown of what to expect over the next days, weeks, etc. You're just going to lay out those first couple of days. It tells you what not to do yet. This one's really, really important, because it's like, hey, don't touch this yet, or hey, don't jump ahead to this until you've done this. And it gives a framework. And then most importantly, it will explain how it's going to feel before, during, and after the first handful of tasks in the beginning of the program. And I find that this one
Yeah.
is so powerful, because
Yeah. It
your
would be.
client, again, is so volatile during this time. And so they're sitting there thinking, not only did I do it right, do I have the right information, am I going in the right direction, but they're also thinking, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. Is that normal? Is that whatever? And you're literally going to get ahead of all of that. And you're going to say, listen, after you do this, it's going to feel this way. Before you do this, it's going to feel this way. And that's normal. You're just validating their entire human experience of the process.
Yeah.
Then
Great.
the third one is momentum, which goes from, I'll start soon, or, oh, I have a call next week, to, I'm doing some, not only am I doing something right now, but I'm doing something and it's already worked. So favorite way to install this is to have a 30 minute, no longer, closed loop task, which means it has a leading indicator, a lagging indicator. It has something to do and it has a result to achieve within 30 minutes. Within the first couple of days, 2 to 3 days max. And again, you can easily make this AI leverage. Favorite way to do this is you put together a custom GPT. The example I always give is for a fitness offer. If you're
Yeah.
a fitness coach and you're trying to figure out a way to, create momentum, get people started, create a custom GPT that is going to evaluate based on your IP, your coaching, evaluates everything that a person has in their fridge and pantry. And all they have to do is go to that custom GPT, insert everything they have in their fridge and their pantry. It spits out a red, yellow, green list of what they need to get rid of, what they need to watch and be careful of, and what they're good to go to eat. And then it gives them a grocery list, shopping list of what they need to go out and buy. And it also gives them a list of questions to consider and try and answer before your first call.
Amazing.
And boom,
Yeah.
they're off to the races. They already have clarity. They already know what they need to do. And then the last one is identity. And that is going from, I'm just a transaction to these are my people. This is the container I belong in. Favorite way to do this is to link every client up with, some people will call it an accountability buddy, but link every client up to somebody else who is at their stage. And, some people would say it's like, oh, you do that for like, they can be accountable to each other, make better progress, da, 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 da. The main reason, again, from this client success perspective that I like to install this is there's no better way for somebody to feel seen than when you say, hey, Sally, John over here is in the exact same spot that you are. John, Sally is in the exact same spot that you are. You guys need to connect because there's going to be a lot you're going to be able to learn and see from each other and bounce off each other as you go through this process. There's no better way for somebody to be seen than for you to pick somebody else out and say, listen, I matched with you with this person for X and Y and Z reasons. They feel so seen, so heard, so supported, and it deepens their commitment to you into the process. And so if you can achieve all four of those things in onboarding, it's a lot, but if you can achieve all four of those things in onboarding, simply put, your LTV will skyrocket.
Yeah, and listen, what you just talked about there, and again, I know that was a lot to for someone who's listening at the first time, is going to go, whoa, holy smokes, that's a lot to unpack. But to turn a satisfied customer into a long-term partner who continues to buy, refer, and expand with you, that's the strategy you just laid down is really a function of that for an organization that wants to grow. And again, I got to go back to how you started this. This stuff's not like, it's not sexy, right? Like you got to put some work into it, some thought to it. I mean, not saying that you don't have to do it on the front end, but just put as much emphasis on the retention side and the back end as you do on the front end, and it'll come together. All right, a couple more questions before we go here. And listen, you've been fantastic, and this guy knows his shit. I just listening to Bradley, he knows his stuff. And if a company's listening today and wanted to improve retention immediately, okay, immediately. Now, I know you unpacked that huge thing, but what are some of the first 2 to 3 actions you would tell them to implement like right away? And I know every company's different and they got different things going on, but what are some of the most common?
Yeah. Most common fixes I see, number one, are in the ask for the referrals. This is usually a very quickly implementable strategy. So I like to break up referral asks, and the same is for testimonial. So for that third sale advocacy, it all kind of works the same way. It just depends on if you're asking for a testimonial or referral, but it's the same strategy at the end of the day. So the ask in whatever form. I like to break it up into a soft ask and a hard ask. So soft ask is just something that comes out. You can do this honestly as many times as you want through the program. It can come at, each time they have a meaningful win. It can come at one of those unmarketed delivery moments that we talked about. It comes at a moment where they feel really, connected to the identity of the program. And they're like, hey, my friend over here did this and da-da-da, and I'm really excited for them, who's also in the program. There's so many different moments where you can do a soft ask. Hard ask, this is going to be way more pointed, way more direct, specific. And that can come at either, a mid-program review when they're clearly, they're acing it, they're on track, a case study moment, a milestone win, something like that. And the difference is the soft ask is going to be, the energy behind it is just, it's casual. It's encouraging discretionary effort on behalf of the client, but it's not a forceful thing. The hard ask, and this is again where that CS person needs to have a little bit of that higher D on the disc. The hard ask is pointed. And so just to give you an example, soft ask could be something like, if you have a friend who's where you were, let's say a month ago, I would love to actually just send them a really quick Loom video on what you and I just accomplished together, as we just said you achieved XYZ, so that they can see what's possible. Who are 2 people that come to mind? You're literally asking just to be connected with somebody to send them a Loom video. You don't have to, the person isn't going to be worried about, you risking the relationship with that other person, because usually most referral asks are like, who can I get on the phone with tomorrow, and hard pitch into a program. You're asking to send a Loom video, so you're not risking the relationship at all. The harder ask is something like, listen, you've done the work, it's clearly paying off, this has been the perfect fit for you, and they feel the same. I'm so glad you feel that way. Listen, I have a really specific question for you. If I asked you for one person that you feel like you would genuinely feel great introducing me to, like, don't introduce me to somebody that you don't want to, that you don't feel good about it. But if there's one person that you feel genuinely good introducing me to, who would that be? And I promise you, I will treat them with the exact same care and give them the exact same experience that we gave you. And it's a forceful ask, but it's also a very tonality important question, which is where,
Love how you
experience as a
frame that.
closer will help. Yeah. And so usually I'll do a training on that. I actually work with the teams just as much as I work with the founders in most companies. And so usually a training on that is usually one of the lowest hanging fruit, highest leverage things, and usually see some increases in referral rates pretty quickly. Another thing, just off the top of my head, is in terms of the ascension process. And actually also this is true for referrals, testimonials as well. Everybody waits until the end of the program, the end of the container, to ask for the ascension, referral, testimonial, whatever, because the argument I hear all the time is, well, we want to wait until the results look the greatest. And the best chance for those to look the greatest are going to be, of course, at the end of the program when we spent the most time with the client. But the problem is that's not when the client's belief is the highest. It doesn't matter if they've gotten results, because by the end, whether they have gotten results or not, they're always going to be comparing it to what you promised them that you would get on the front end. And 9 times out of 10, I'm sorry, it is woefully under. They achieve woefully under what you promised them you will get in the end. And that is what is effed up about this industry, but that is another conversation entirely. So it's going to be different than what you promised. And so instead, ask when the belief that they will get results is the highest. And usually that's going to come somewhere between 30, I like to say 30 to 50% of the way through the container. So if you're, and again, this is back to the example I gave you of the functional, medicine company, we wanted to make sure that they stayed on an increasing track of belief that they were going to get results, seeing momentum, and then find the right time to hard ask for referrals. And so again, so if you're in, let's say, a 6-month program, right, be looking at around month 2, early month 3.
Yeah.
Where can I get early ascensions? Where can I get testimonials? Where can I get referrals? And start kind of reverse engineering that and finding those best moments to ask with the highest leverage. So
this guy, he knows his stuff. I'm telling you, it's such great answers, such great insight, but because he's done it. And this has been a great show. You've come up with some great answers
I appreciate
across the board, and that's why I love this conversation. Last question is, where can people get a hold of you? You got a company, business owners, anybody out there who wants to get in touch with you, wants to learn more, where can they find you?
I do everything on LinkedIn, so I post daily content, repost all podcasts I'm on and such on LinkedIn, and my site is just my name, bradleyrausch.com. But yeah, LinkedIn's my jam. And I always like to bring up really, really quickly before you, and you mentioned it a minute ago, of like, it's not sexy. I genuinely hope, I hope at the end of any sort of speaking, any podcast, whatever, is like, listen, I hope you find it at least a little sexy, because if you can get a client that, if you've got a program you're bringing in, let's say an average of 10 clients a month, if you can even turn 2 of those clients that you bring in a month into a really great referral or a ascension into a program, into a container that is way higher margin and way lower effort, as most ascension offers are, than your initial program, your initial offer, right? And you're getting clients in at way higher margins for exactly 0 customer acquisition cost. I'm sorry, I find that insanely sexy. So I hope you see a way to get that, or start to achieve that from this. So
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. Your company's Level Up Influence, right?
Yeah.
Level Up Influence, your company. Check him out. He's Bradley Rausch. I'm Dave Sliman. Thanks for being here on this show. You've been a great guest, and we have such success for guests like you. So really enjoyed our time today. Check it out, everybody. Wealth, health, success to all of you out there. Go get a win. Go retain a customer. Get a referral. Do a better, stronger onboarding, whatever it is. But Bradley, thanks for being here. We'll see you all next time.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.